She called the cops on me at my own house, said I didn't even live there 6 weeks straight out fighting wildfires, not a minute home. And the first thing I see pulling into my driveway is our HOA President Carol streaming a live video to her community watch page like she's catching some big-time criminal. And not just a guy desperate for a hot shower in a bed. I step out of my truck, still covered in soot, and there she is, platinum hair, that neon, windbreaker voice sharp enough to cut glass, screaming for the whole world that the fake federal agent has returned. And then there are 3 cop cars boxed up on my curb, officers lined up, hands hovering at their belts like I'm John Dillinger. That was my homecoming. You know, welcome back now. Let me back up a sec. My name is Alex. I work for the Bureau of Land Management. And when a wildfire takes off, you don't get to call in sick. You just go, Carol knows this, the whole neighborhood knows it except here. She is waving a folder stuffed with what she calls proof HOA, bylaws, a photoshopped utility bill with her name on my address, even some wild theory that any house left unattended for 30 days defaults to HOA. Control the cops aren't exactly buying it, but they got to go through the motions, and I'm so tired. I feel like I'm dreaming my hands are up. I'm explaining where I've been, why I look like I lost a bar fight with Smokey Bear, and Carol's shoving her phone in my face for her live stream, narrating my capture for her handful of viewers. And just when I think can't get more ridiculous, my neighbor Maria shows up, 70 years old and mad as hell, waving my spare house key, yelling, "This is nonsense, Carol. I watered his plants for 6 weeks." Maria is the type who bakes for funerals and shows up at every HOA meeting just for the cookies. And she's got no patience for drama. Carol turns her camera on Maria, spinning a fresh conspiracy about how elderly residents are manipulated by clever imposters. One of the cops is stifling a laugh. But Carol doesn't even blink. She just keeps going, claiming she's got proof I'm not just a fraud, but a dangerous one, an actual deep state plant. I know what you're thinking. Surely the cops see through it. And they do eventually. Officer Davis checks my ID, matches it with property records, and apologizes with that look people get when they've been dragged into someone else's personal circus. "Sorry, sir, you're free to go," he says. But Carol's not letting up, waving a stack of printouts from conspiracy forums, wild stuff about federal imposters, scribbled with my name in red marker. Now, here's the part one didn't see coming. Carol isn't just satisfied with trying to evict me live on camera. By the next morning, my email is flooded with violation notices, grass half an inch too long, birds singing past 10 p.m., a complaint about my parking angle looking suspicious. She even accuses me of unauthorized breathing patterns in the HOA common area. I scroll through a brand new website, expose the faker with a grainy picture of me at my mailbox, cropped into a wanted poster, Comic Sans font, the whole 9 yards. She's got a YouTube channel now too. Breaking down evidence slide by slide like I'm the neighborhood Una bomber. It'd be hilarious if it wasn't my life day. 3, I wake up to 30 wooden stakes pounded into my yard, each marked HOA property. Carol's out there directing her husband Bob like a drill sergeant, marking out new borders that run 20 feet into my backyard. You know what I mean. Bob's sweating through his shirt, glancing at my window. Every 5 seconds I document everything, photos, GPS pins, legal letter, trying to play it cool. I send a cease and desist letter, and 3 hours later Carol's burning it live on social media, shouting about fake legal threats from fake agents. This woman's commitment is almost impressive. That night, Maria catches me out by the fence, whispering like we're in some old spy movie. She slips me an old newspaper clipping about Carol's grandfather, a poker game, and the family losing everything at the Silver Dollar Casino. Except instead of facing it, he blamed the government. The family legend isn't about cards, it's about being wronged by the feds. It hits me Carol's war with me isn't really about bylaws or boundaries. It's an old grudge handed down and polished over decades, a myth that turned her into the sheriff of a street no one else cares about. The next morning, I go to pull up the stakes, legally, methodically documenting every move. And as I'm stacking them by the curb, Carol's calling 911 again, saying, "I'm destroying HOA property and moving weapons into my shed." I glance at my shed and almost laugh. It holds a shovel, a rake, and some grass seed. "Ma'am, we're sending all available units," the dispatcher says, and Carol looks over at me, mouthing checkmate like we're in a Bond movie. SWAT rolls up 5 police cars, news chopper overhead, though honestly, it was just a traffic update that Carol claimed was about her. I stand there, hands up, watering can in hand, as a tactical team surrounds my shed like it's a cartel stash house. They open and find nothing but garden tools, and Officer Davis looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. Carol tries one. Last play, she grabs my badge, says BLM means Black Lives Matter, not Bureau of Land Management, tries to bend it in front of the cops to prove it's fake Davis, finally loses his patience, verifies me through federal databases, and tells Carol flat out, "Ma'am, he is who he says he is." You'd think that had ended, but she's already planning her next live stream. A week later, Carol calls an emergency HOA meeting, 200 printed agendas, a PowerPoint, a full AV setup borrowed from her nephew determined to expose the fraud. I show up late to places, almost MB-15 folks, half there for the show Maria with Popcorn Bob, looking like he'd rather be hit by lightning than sit through another minute of this Carol. Gets up, makes her case slide, after slide of my supposed anarchist literature. One's just me reading a gardening magazine vacation photos. She accidentally clicks past arrows pointing to nowhere when she calls a vote to ban fake federal agents. Forever three hands go up hers, her best friend, and a guy who was just stretching. But the real twist comes after when my boss calls. We got 47 Freedom of Information Act requests about you. She says not even hiding her annoyance, Carol's reported me to the EPA, FBI, CIA, and for good measure Space Force, claiming I use satellites to spy on her garden. Now the feds are involved. And the next thing I know, Carol gets a formal invitation to a special recognition ceremony.
Downtown, she shows up in a new suit practice, speech in hand, and the auditorium is packed to neighbors, news, even a few agents. In the back, the curtain rises, and instead of the award, she expects Carol finds herself on display. Her live streams, 911 calls, all her evidence projected for the room. The prosecutor reads out her family's old poker scandal. Maria testifies, and even Bob, finally fed up, admits he's kept her secret for years. By the end, Carol's face is pale as a ghost. They cuff her, arrest her for harassment and false reporting, and her phone, still streaming, catches her last desperate look as she's led away. The neighborhood is dead silent. Then someone whispers, "She finally went viral," and I have to bite my lip not to laugh. 3 months later, the neighborhood's different. Carol's gone, Maria's HOA president, Bob's dating his therapist, violation meetings replaced by potlucks, and my grass can finally grow an inch too high without it being a federal case. I get a letter from Carol, now working at a grocery store, a photo of her at a support group. She says she's letting go of old ghosts. I look out over my yard, the sun setting over land that's seen fire and storms, and finally a little peace. So let me ask you, would you forgive a neighbor who tried to ruin your life if they finally came clean, or are some wounds just too deep? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me your wildest HOA story, or just where you stand on justice and second chances. I read everyone, and I got to say, sometimes the best revenge is just letting the truth come out in the